I'm going to be ranking the past 15 Super Bowl winning teams based on who had the most aura. There'll be 4 different categories, including minimal, medium, high, and max aura. A team that lands in the maximum category was dominant and memorable, while the minimal category teams were forgettable, boring, and/or unconvincing. The first low aura squad, the 2012 Giants, a 9-7 team that made it into the playoffs and upset the Patriots in what was a less thrilling sequel of their first matchup. Eli threw a pick per game in the regular season, but as he usually did, he turned it on in the playoffs, had 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and led a game-winning drive in the big dance. Speaking of dancing, Victor Cruz was in peak form as the wide receiver 1 in New York. They also had Jason Pierre-Paul and Justin Tuck controlling the line on defense. The Giants stopped Tom Brady from winning a ring and simultaneously slowed down his Uggs marketing campaign, which was a big win for football as a whole. New York was far from dominant, but they got hot when it mattered. The 2024 Chiefs, who could forget last season where the constant Taylor Swift camera cuts helped distract from the least explosive Chiefs offense in the Mahomes era. This Chiefs squad looked more like the Brady Patriots than the Mahomes Chiefs. They won games by using short passes, tightening up on defense, and being clutch in the big moments. Kansas City's resilience as a team was incredible, especially in the Ravens game, but this Super Bowl run was overshadowed by the Eras Tour and really won't be remembered for anything besides Mahomes getting one step closer to Brady. The 2019 Patriots, the last Super Bowl team in the Brady-Belichick dynasty, they were already a well-oiled machine at this point, which is not a reference to never mind. Yeah, they were pretty good at this point. Their legacy was already cemented. The Patriot way, albeit not the sexiest way, was in full force. A strong defense and a hard-to-stop pitch-and-catch game between Brady and his gang of receivers ultimately led them to victory. A fortunate coin toss against Kansas City also helped. All in all, they weren't super dominant or memorable, but everyone did their job and they were clinical. On to medium aura, the 2023 Chiefs. This was the season when Mahomes reclaimed his throne after a couple of tough losses in years past. Pat won the regular season MVP and the Super Bowl MVP on top of the Super Bowl. The Chiefs' leading wideout in the final game was none other than TikTok boy himself, Juju Smith-Schuster. Speaking of that Super Bowl, it was an action-packed mess. Blown coverages, tush pushes, fumbles, holding calls, even stanky legs. Through it all, Pat was victorious and showed that with Brady gone, he's a tier above the rest of the competition. The 2016 Broncos, in a year defined by dabbing and kids getting footballs, it was a historic defense that achieved glory in the end. This Broncos team had failed in the playoffs for half a decade, being led by a historically good offense centered around Peyton Manning. Ironically, this was the one year where the offense took a step back and the defense came together to lead the team. Peyton Manning's arm was absolutely cooked in his final season. It would have been equally as effective to trot out a 10-year-old Arch Manning under center, but that speaks to how good that defense truly was. They allowed under 15 points per game in the playoffs, even though they played against Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, and MVP Cam Newton. If the Broncos had a somewhat competent offense, they would be looked at as maybe even a better team than the Legion of Boom Seahawks. The 2013 Ravens, the last ride for Ray Lewis and Ed Reed as Ravens took a magical turn as they upset Peyton and Brady on their way to the championship. Their QB, Joe Flacco, stepped into his true elite self in the playoffs, throwing for over 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. On top of that, Michael Orr finally lived up to the hype from the blind side and achieved the ultimate goal of becoming a Super Bowl champion. This team was consistently good for years, and this was the postseason where they finally put it all together. The 2011 Packers, Aaron Rodgers won his first and only chip and cemented himself as the next great Packers quarterback. This was back when Green Bay actually drafted wide receivers and not backup QBs. They had some studs in Greg Jennings, Donald Driver, and Jordy Nelson. Defensively, Clay Matthews was coming into his own, and Charles Woodson, the now Hall of Famer, was still playing at a high level in his final season. One of the most storied franchises added another chapter of glory to their history, and a combination of young guys and accomplished veterans got a taste of victory. The 2010 Saints, a revolutionary season for New Orleans as they finally got over the hump and won their first Super Bowl. What a moment it was for Breeze, Payton, and the rest of the organization and city. Isn't it nice when you get rewarded for getting the job done? Well, that wasn't the only reward those players received. The Saints had a full-on bounty system established, paying defenders for injury-causing hits. Imagine going into a game and your coach says he'll pay you $5 million to hit Peyton Manning right in the forehead. That's the easiest money you're ever going to make. Besides that situation, they had plenty of special moments, especially in the postseason. Tracy Porter's fourth quarter interceptions in the final 2 games are absolutely classic moments, and their Super Bowl celebration just felt like it meant more than the average championship. Moving on to high aura, the 2015 Patriots, defined by deflating footballs and dynasties. It had been almost a decade since Brady won his most recent Super Bowl, and this Patriots team was far from the flashiest, but they played good complementary football. Brady diced up defenses with his boys Edelman, Gronk, and Amendola, but undrafted rookie cornerback Malcolm Butler was the one who made the biggest play of the season. It was a classic moment and game. Months after, the league tried to come down on the team for deflating balls in a game where they won 45-7, which just added to the allure of the championship. They probably could have still won that match if they were forced to throw a basketball for half the game. The 2022 Rams, the GOAT finally got his ring this year after staying loyal to the Rams for so many years. This guy stayed true and it paid off. Cooper Kupp, the greatest white wide receiver ever. You couldn't have scripted better storylines for this LA team. On one side, you had Sean McVay, a young offensive genius looking to cement himself with his first ring as a head coach. Then you had Matthew Stafford, one of the most talented quarterbacks ever, looking to do the same, as well as Kupp, the Triple Crown winner, and Aaron Donald, one of the greatest defensive players ever. The game ended up being decided by these players as Stafford and Kupp connected on a crucial score in the fourth, and then Donald iced the game by pressuring Burrow. This team will be remembered for the legendary talent they had across the board. The 2021 Bucs, Tom freaking Brady winning his 7th ring while Belichick had to sit at home and watch with his girl. Sure, Brady probably had to miss some jiu-jitsu practices, but this chokeout of the Chiefs was sweeter than any rear naked choke. Even if it was extra naked, this Tampa Bay squad did the impossible in more ways than one. They managed to revive the last few brain cells Antonio Brown had, while also keeping Donkey Kong Sue's temper in check and keeping Gronk away from any frats. On paper, this was supposed to be one of the most dysfunctional teams in history, but they kept it together, showed amazing chemistry, and peaked at the perfect time, leading to a legendary performance in the final game of the year. Finally, maximum aura, starting with the 2020 Chiefs, the first Super Bowl winning squad for Kansas City under Mahomes. This was a time when the Chiefs were must-see TV. Mahomes to Hill for 50 yards seemed inevitable every game, and Travis Kelce was in his prime. They put up an average of 39 points per game in their playoff run, and they came back from a 24-point deficit in the divisional round and double-digit deficits in both the AFC Championship game and Super Bowl. Their offense was so explosive that defenses just couldn't hold them for a full 4 quarters. The 49ers were oh so close, but the Hill Wasp route cracked their defense late in the fourth, and they couldn't recover after. This Chiefs team was exciting, dominant, significant, and very memorable. The 2017 Patriots, 2 years after their historical triumph over the Legion of Boom, the Patriots found a way to win the Super Bowl in an even more dramatic fashion. Playing without Gronk for the entire playoffs, Tom Brady had to take it up a notch. He threw for nearly 400 yards per game, all with fully inflated footballs. In the Super Bowl, we all know what happened. The greatest comeback in the history of the championship game. With 17 minutes left in regulation, the Patriots held an all-time great offense to 0 points for the rest of the game, while also putting up 25 unanswered. Possibly the greatest feat achieved by Belichick and Brady as a collective. On paper, this maybe wasn't the most talented Super Bowl team, but this run will never be forgotten. The 2018 Eagles, for the first time in their long history, Philly brought home a chip behind the legend Big Freaking Nick. This team was on top of the league for the entire season, and even with Wentz getting injured, they were still able to keep things together. In the Super Bowl, Foles put up a performance like no other. Over 350 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown. The Philly mic'd up call is as special as it gets. The way Peterson was searching for a play on his sheet, and Nick just walked up and asked for Philly. Man, it's just one of those moments that gets you fired up every time you see it. Any Super Bowl win is special, but beating Brady and Belichick for your first as a franchise just makes it mean so much more. The 2014 Seahawks, the Legion of Boom, hard hits, trash talk, skittles, fine avoidances. This team had it all. One of the best defenses of all time, equally skilled and physical. No team wanted to mess with them. They made Peyton and the Broncos look like bums. Offensively, Marshawn Lynch ran through players' faces over and over and over again. The Seahawks also had a young Russell Wilson back when he could scramble for days and didn't have a stylist. Seattle took over the league and pop culture in a way that no other team on this list did, and they will always be remembered as one of the greatest squads ever assembled. So those are my rankings. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'm out.